All right, hello, welcome to the Egg Timer app. I want to show you the finished product of where it is that we want to get. So I want you to create an app that has a timer like this where you can just set a amount of time for a short period, maybe a minute 58, and you hit go, and all of a sudden your timer is going to start counting down, and you can stop, and you'll notice we got this grayed out, so we can't go ahead and update that. But if we hit the stop button, this will reset it back to 30 seconds. And I'll show you if we bring it down to a smaller amount of time. I'm going to turn up the sound here. We want to have some sort of alarm or something play when the timer finishes. So yeah, check that out. Pretty cool, huh? So this is what I want you to create. I'm going to allow you to go ahead and do this on your own. Again, when you do things by yourself, that's where the real learning takes place. Of course, I'll walk through how to complete it, but want you to have the opportunity to do this on your own. Now, as far as there's really two things you got to go get before you do this, and that's the picture of an egg and some sort of sound that you want to play when the alarm ends. Or the timer rather. I just went ahead and searched egg on Google Images, found this one on clipartpanda.com. So if you'd like to find one similar, I just suggest going to Google Images. Also, for the air horse sound, I found one on soundbible.com. So you can go get these exact ones if you want to. Really, I just recommend Googling to go find the proper image and sound, and you can just go ahead, right click, save that image. For here on Sound Bible, you have to click the MP3 button to go ahead and download that. But that's how you can get those. And again, I want you to eventually arrive at an app like this. Try as much as you can on your own, then we'll come back. I'll show you how I did it, and maybe you'll learn from the differences between us. Okay? Good luck. All right, let's go ahead and get started here. We want to create a new project for this egg timer. So I'm going to call my project appropriately egg timer. And I'll just go ahead and do the defaults for all these, hit enter through there. And then while this is setting up, we have our air horn sound, we have the egg image that we need to get. So I've already got those downloaded there on my desktop. You can see them, but we need to appropriately get them into the project. So the first one that we want to add is the egg to our drawable folder. So we're going to right click here, we're going to say reveal in Finder. And with that, we'll go ahead and take our egg. We want to put images in there. We'll just drop the egg there. Okay, and the next thing we want to do inside of Res is we want to make a new directory. And I'm going to call this raw. This is going to hold our audio file. So right click on raw here, and we'll say reveal in Finder. And then we'll go ahead and take our air horn noise here, and we'll go ahead and put it in raw. There we go. Now with both of these, just to make sure we're up to date, we're going to say synchronize raw. We're also going to right click drawable, say synchronize selected files. There we go. Okay, so now that we have those two in place, let's go ahead and work on the visual side of the app. I feel like it's usually best when you're working on a project, let's visually get it set up right, and then let's write all the code to make it magical and work. So we'll go ahead and start on this main activity. Give ourselves some room to work with here. And the first thing that we want to do is we want to bring in the seek bar. So you can see we got a seek bar here. I guess before we do that, let's get rid of that text view that we had before. And we'll go ahead and bring in the seek bar. And we want to have this thing stuck up to the top. Let's go ahead and just do maybe a margin of 5. We also want it connected to the sides here. So let's maybe say, on this side, we want it to have 5 as well, and on this right side, again, let's go ahead and do something like 5. Now with this, we got to make sure we select this, and we'll fiddle around here till we get to extend. Perfect. So now we've got the seek bar, which is in a good place. Now the next step is we need to go ahead and get an image view so that we can show the egg there. So let's go ahead and go to our images here. Oh, there's an image view. We'll go ahead and bring that out. All right. So it wants to put something in there. Let's go ahead and select that beautiful egg that we had before. And here we've got this nice big eggs that's showing up, and let's go ahead and connect it with what we've got. So go up to the top. We want it to be fairly close. Your numbers, you can totally pick what you want these to be. I'm kind of having a fun time with the number 5 here, so let's go ahead and see what that looks like. If we find that we don't like it, we can always go ahead and change it. So this is something you just got to kind of play around with and find what you think works best. Okay, So we have the seek bar, we have the egg. Really the next thing for us is we need a label to be able to show, or a text view rather, how much time is left here, and then we need a button. So let's go ahead and go to our text. We'll bring out a text view here. I think it might just be best if we have it centered, maybe here inside of the egg. So we'll go ahead and just say that this thing should be centered. No, I forget. With this, you want to go ahead and right click here, and we want to go and say center. We'll start with horizontally in parent, and then we'll right click and say center vertically in parent. Okay, so we've got that at the center of the screen. Let's start with some default text of maybe saying, there's 30 seconds on the timer or something like that, but it's really, really tiny right now, like kind of hard to see tiny. So you can actually go here and change what you want this to look like. I kind of just prefer going in and changing the raw size of this. So we'll go ahead and scroll down until we get to the text attributes here. So we'll go ahead and find text size here, and totally up to you. Let's maybe see what something like 36 looks like. That's a little bit bigger, but we could even go bigger. Let's just see, for example, what like 60 SP looks like. Yeah, that to me that looks pretty good. Again, your discretion, you get to choose how that looks, but looks pretty good there. And really the last thing that we just need is the button. Okay, so we'll go ahead and grab our button here. We're going to put it right below the text view, and we want to make sure that we have a good connection here. So let's go ahead and get back. We need to hide all of our attributes here. There we go. And we'll go ahead and just do our little up here. That connects it automatically with the timer above it. And I think we're at a pretty good position. So if you want to, you can right click this and say center horizontally in parent. That's just to make sure it stays in the center. But that should be enough there. We do want to change what the button says. So we can change that to maybe something like go. This is going to change throughout the course of the app depending on if the timer is going or not, but at least this is a good start here. Okay, so app's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and now work on the programmatic side of things. Oh, I almost forgot, we need to set everything here. So for example, with the seek bar, we have to give it a proper ID. So we'll say something like timer seek bar. For the image view, yes to this. So we'll go ahead and just call this egg image view. For this text view, go ahead and call this countdown text view. Excellent. And yes, go ahead and update all those references. And then lastly, for the button, we'll call this something like go button. Okay. So we now finally got everything in place. All the proper IDs are showing up here. Now we can finally go do the programmatic stuff. So before we do move forward, I want to show, we got in a little bit of a layout tiff here. You can go ahead and switch this back to portrait if you want. And I somehow arrived on a Nexus 10. I think we had a Nexus 4 before. So anyways, that's how we can fix the layout of that stuff. But let's go ahead and make it so that when we move this slider, we can actually change this text view to show the appropriate time that we would want to go start the timer at. So a couple of things that we've got to do here. The first of which is we've got to get access to the seek bar, and we got to get access to the text view. So first, let's go ahead and do the seek bar. Say we're going to have a seek bar that let's just call the timer seek bar. Okay, and this is going to be equal to find view by ID, and we'll do our capital R dot ID dot, and let's go back and see what we named this. Timer seek bar. That would make sense. And we'll say timer seek bar. Excellent stuff. We also need access to the text view. So let's make a new text view that we are going to call timer text view. And again, we'll do find view by ID R dot ID dot. And let's see what we've got for the name here. And we have countdown text view. All right, countdown text view. Excellent. So now we have access to both these things, though, and it looks like we needed to import the stuff for text view. So we type in XView, let's just hit enter there, and that'll add it to our imports. All right, so with that, we need to go ahead and set some initial values for our seek bar. So let's go ahead and get the timer seek bar. first thing that we want to do is we want to set what the max could possibly be for this, and we want the max for this to be 10 minutes. And if this is referring to, the slider is referring to the number of seconds that we've got going on, we would want to make it so that the max would be 10 minutes, 60 seconds in a minute. That would be 600 seconds here is what we want. Okay. The other thing that we want to set with the seek bar is what the current progress is at start time. So we're going to do set progress, and let's just go ahead and do 30 seconds. That's like our starting position for the seek bar. Okay. Then with that, whenever someone changes the seek bar, we want to be able to run some code. So we've done this a couple of times now. You should have this no problem. We're going to say on seek bar change listener, and again we'll do a new seek bar change listener. K gives us these three awesome functions inside of here. So it's the on progress change is the big one that we want to be working with here. And the first thing that we've kind of got to do is figure out, if they are at 432 seconds, like what does that equate to in minutes and seconds, right? Because we don't want on our timer here to just show seconds. Like we want to show the minutes and the seconds. We want it to be nice and organized there. So in order to do that, we can do a little bit of math here. And to find the minutes, we can create a new int called minutes. And the math that we're going to do here is we're simply going to take I, which is the number of seconds. We're going to go ahead and divide that by 60. Okay. And what that does is when it converts it into an int, because maybe some number divided by 60 is not going to be just a whole number. There's going to be a remainder there. But by saying that this is going to be an int, it's going to round it down to the next number, which is going to show us the appropriate amount of minutes. So then, in order to find the seconds, we can say, okay, int seconds is equal to whatever I is, that's the total seconds, minus this minutes times 60. So we can say minutes times 60, just like that. And so essentially, right, like if there was 122 seconds there, that would mean that there would be 2 minutes. And if we do 2 minutes times 60, that's 120. So 122 minus 120 means that there's 2 seconds left. Now you could leave this like this. Personally, I like to put little parentheses around here to say I want to do this first, then that. I think because of order of operations, that'll happen automatically. But I kind of like to put the parentheses around there. It makes me remember, okay, we're doing minutes times 60 first, and then we're doing this subtraction there. Okay. The next thing that we want to do then is update the text view. So we're going to go ahead and get our timer text view, and we're going to say timer text view dot set text, and this is where we want to input our information. So we want to have the minutes and then the seconds, right? So let's go ahead and convert the minutes. We're going to say integer dot to string. There we go, and we're going to pass in minutes. Excellent. So that'll give us a string. So let's add to this string a colon to separate the minutes and the seconds. Then we're going to add onto this the seconds. So again, we'll say integer, there we go, dot to string, and we're going to go ahead and pass in the seconds right there. So that'll go ahead and convert everything that we need. So let's go ahead and get this on our app. Looks like I'm going to have to get my device up and running. I haven't had it started for this project. While that is loading up there is something that I want to talk about, and that's that when we do this conversion of the minutes to the seconds, we're going to run into an issue. And the issue is that for the seconds here, like let's say, for example, we had 120 seconds on the countdown, right? So 120 divided by 60, that gives us 2 minutes. And then, 120 minus 120, that means there's 0 seconds. Well, when you do 0 seconds and convert that to a string, it's going to show like 2:0, which looks a little bit weird with time, right? Like it's usually 2:00. So there is a way around this, and it's by basically doing an if statement to say, hey, if we're working with 0 seconds, we want it to show double zeros. So the way that we can fix this is by creating a new string. For example, we could call this the second string. Okay. And with this, we are going to go ahead and set this equal to, do our proper integer conversion stuff, right? So just like we've done before, we're going to take this thing to string, we'll go ahead and grab our seconds there, right? But then this is where we want to do our if statement. So we want to say if let's go ahead and get our parentheses in here. if the seconds string is equal to the number 0, just the singular number 0, this is where we'd want to, sort of update it so that it's 2 zeros there. So this is where we want to say, okay, second string, we're going to go ahead and say that you are now equal to 0, 0. So if it is the case that, for example, there's 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, whatever, this if statement never gets called, and we can just go ahead and use the second string. But if not, we kind of have this here to sort of protect against that. So we can go ahead and take this second string, and rather than doing this integer conversion, we can go ahead and delete that and paste it there. Now, you may be wondering, do we want to do the same thing for the minutes, right? Like, do we want to show like 0, 0 for the minutes? Well, that's up to you. I mean, it's kind of a personal preference thing. You can decide. I think it's probably better without. I kind of like the single 0 example. But again, up to you with how you want to work that. So let's go ahead and see what we've got here. Go ahead and hit run on this one more time. Should see our app pop up. Okay. Here it comes. Excellent. So I'm going to go ahead and move this slider, and look at that. We get those awesome numbers. And as you can see, I think this is the earlier code where, we were saying, if it was equal to 0, go ahead and do that double thing, right? So this is what we want to prevent so that it doesn't say, 10 colon and then a singular 0 there. So now with this new code, let's go ahead and save and then run this. All right. And we should see the improvement here now on our app. So let's go ahead and move that to the edge. Oh, okay. For some reason that is not working. Let me go ahead and take a look why. So I figured out what the issue is. I forgot that with strings, we rather than doing the 2 equal signs, we want to go ahead and actually do a dot equals when you're comparing string. This is the better way to handle it. So if we go ahead and make that change with our if statement, we'll go ahead and open up our app. And you'll notice now when we go ahead and move this, there we go, we get that nice double 0. And again, I think the singular 0 looks good. That's up to you about, whether or not you think that's a good idea. You can totally choose. So with that, we should probably update on the visual side here rather than doing the double 0 on this. We should go ahead and change it to we have a single 0 just to kind of keep things all uniform. All right, let's go ahead and keep moving forward. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to actually integrate a timer into this so that we can have some counting down and we can update the timer as things are going on. So the first thing that we got to do is we've got to go ahead with our button. So the button is going to kind of be the place that we kick off the timer. And so with this, we have to provide some name for its on-click method here. And so we're going to go ahead and just call this something like, we'll just say button clicked. Okay. So we got that name there. Let's go ahead back and up here at the top inside of our class, but not inside of the onCreate function there, we are going to go ahead and create a new function method. And we're going to say public void, and we're going to call this one button clicked, the same name that we had before. Inside of here, it's going to get a parameter of a view. Okay, we'll go ahead and do our little curly brackets there. And let's make sure we get the proper code implemented. We want android.viewView. So go ahead and hit enter there. And just to confirm that at least things are working, we're going to go ahead and just do a quick log here. So we'll say log.i, and we'll say something like button pressed and nice exclamation point. Okay, so we'll go ahead and add our little semicolon there. Let's go ahead and run this, make sure that our button's working. In order for that, let's go ahead and get our logcat up and running. And here we go, showing up in the emulator now. So we'll go ahead and hit this button, and look at that. We get the button pressed nice. So every time we click on that, we get that showing up. Okay, so that's good to know that we've got that showing up. The next step for us is we want to go ahead and create a timer when the user hits that button. So we're going to go ahead and create a new countdown timer. Go ahead and hit enter on that. And with this, remember, we want to go ahead and add how long we want it to run for, and what the interval is going to be. So for now, let's just go ahead and put in some big number. That's 10,000 milliseconds, so that'll be 10 seconds, and we want this to go off like every 1,000 milliseconds, which is 1 second. That's what we're looking for there. Oh, I accidentally misplaced this ending parenthesis, so we want to delete that. Make sure that goes at the end here where we make a new countdown timer, and we've got our nice curly brackets here, and at the end of this we want to make sure we start it and put our semicolon. And then the last step for us is just to hover over here, and then we can go ahead and implement our methods, both the onTick and the onFinish. So we'll go ahead and hit OK to that. And now we can go ahead and actually write the code that's going to take in order for this all to happen. So in regards to the onTick, so every 1 second that goes by, we want to know about what the current time is left and sort of update that inside of the text view. And if you think about it, we already have all of that code down here, right? Where we take the time and we turn this into minutes and then seconds, and we update this. We do the special check to see for the 00 situation. So let's go ahead and just sort of reuse this code. We're going to make a new method here. So outside, let's go ahead and make a new method. So we're going to say public void, and we want to go ahead and call this one the update timer function. Now we do have to go ahead and take in some sort of parameter here, and so let's go ahead and take in a function called seconds left. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and do our curly brackets just like that. So to start with, let's remove the code from here, put it inside of this new update timer function, and then call that here, and then we'll sort of mix up or fix all the problems that we're going to get from that. So let's go ahead and cut that first, paste it there. Then we're going to come down here and say update timer. We're going to pass in I, right, which is the numbers of seconds that are left. So this code now is fine. There's no errors here, but as you can notice, we've got tons of issues left here. So first, let's take the seconds left, and we're going to replace that with wherever we had seen I previously. So that's going to go ahead and fix those problems. But then the timer text view, that's another issue, right? Because we had timer text view being set up here, but we want to have access to it, in other methods here. So let's go ahead and delete this, or I'm going to copy this code here so that we can create the text view outside, and then we'll just set this as if it was already created, and then we'll go to the top of the page here and say, all right, there's going to be a new text view called timer text view. And you'll notice I didn't bring along the final there. That was code that Android Studio automatically added to me. And when you have a final, that means it can never possibly change. But when you have it as a property of your class here, you want it to be a little bit ambiguous. And if you do final, you're going to get an error. So that's why I got rid of that. But you'll notice that gets rid of the error that we were having before. And so now we have this really cool update timer function, which here inside of our onTick method, we can go ahead and call update timer. And then the only kind of math that we have to do here is we have to take this L, which is the number of milliseconds until the thing's all finished up, and we've got to divide that by 1,000 so it turns into seconds. So we're going to take L, and we're going to go ahead and divide that by 1,000. And you'll see we get a little bit of an error here, and that's because we have a long, and this function is looking for an int, so we have to pass this over as an int. Say, hey, go ahead and automatically convert this thing into an int. And when we do that, we do get some working code here. All right. So before we go ahead and test this out, I do want to go ahead and make sure that the finish code here is working. So let's go ahead and just log something here, and we'll just say something like finished, comma, timer all done. Okay. And one more thing here is that before we had just put in some, arbitrary amount of time, when in reality, we actually want to go ahead and use how much time is, was allotted inside of the seek bar, because right now this would just do a 10-second countdown. So rather than this, we're going to go ahead and delete that. And in order to get access to our timer seek bar, we're going to have to do a similar thing where we're going to cut this code, paste it up top so we can declare this as a property so it can be accessed everywhere. Then we'll take this timer seek bar, place that there, and now we can go ahead and say, okay, timer seek bar dot get progress. That's going to give us the number of seconds that the user wanted to set. And we just got to go ahead and multiply that by 1,000. So then we're working with milliseconds. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this. See what it looks like in our app. We'll go ahead and have Logcat open here so we can see what's coming through for us. So as we said before, we can kind of move this down. Let's go ahead and see what it looks like when we do 9 seconds. So look at that. We get this cool countdown going here. That's some awesome functionality, looking really, really good. But the one issue that we're going to have here is you'll see we got the timer all done. But as we were going through on this timer, let me go ahead and run this. Now, I want to get to a shorter time. You could see, well, now that it's running, we didn't see it, but you could see like when there was 6 seconds left, we'll see here in a second, right? It doesn't look when it says 9, 8, like it'd be good if it was 0, 7, 0, 6, whatever, right? Like we would like to have that option for our text there. So we can fix that here with our if statement. Rather than just seeing if this string is equal to 0, what we can do is just say, hey, if there's just a single digit, meaning that if it's 9 or less, then we want to just automatically go ahead and add a 0 onto it. So the if statement now that we're going to check with is say, okay, we're going to take the number of seconds, with this, which is an int, and we're going to say if the number of seconds is less than or equal to 9, so if it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, we want to place a 0 in front of it. So we're going to say the second string is now going to be equal to whatever the existing second string was, but just in front of that, we are going to add a 0. So go ahead and do that, add our cool little plus button there, and once that is in place, let's go ahead and test our code. Okay, big moment here. Oh, here we go to the emulator. So I'm going to bring this down and look at that. We've got the nice timer, so it's saying, 0306, and let's go ahead and hit go on this. And let's see Logcat to see when that is finished, and boom, look at that. It says timer all done. Now, it's a little bit off. If you've noticed this, let's go ahead and go back up to, maybe something like 9 seconds here. I just want you to see once this hits 0 that we don't exactly get the timer finished to show up when we were hoping that it would, right? So we hit 0 and then it says timer all done. And the reason for this happening is because when we get this timer, I'm going to scroll to where we've got this. Let me get some space here. Okay. So when we're setting what the countdown timers, how long we want it to count for, right? We say, okay, if they want it to go for 9 seconds, 9 seconds times 1,000, that's 9,000 milliseconds, and we're going to count down every 1 second. Well, the problem is that by the time it takes to sort of run this code and come back, instead of it being 9,000 milliseconds, it's like 8,952 or something like that. And so it's just a little bit off. So this is a tiny bit of a hack here, but this is kind of the code that we need in order to make everything work. We're just going to add on 1/10 of a second by saying, hey, take whatever time they wanted times 1,000, but we're also going to add 100 seconds there to sort of do this quick fix and make sure that everything's all working there. Okay, so let's go ahead and run our app one more time. Okay, see if this doesn't look a little bit better for us. And once we've got this, again, let me move down to some sort of time like 6 seconds. Okay, we'll go ahead and hit go there. Our time's coming down. Let me get Logcat open. I kind of missed our timing there. Let's go ahead and try one more time. So we'll do like 6 seconds like this. And it comes down. And we hit 0 and boom, it says timer all done. Okay, so we are in a pretty great spot. Really all that's left for us is we've got to do a little bit more work with this button, and we've also got to get that air horn in place. We're also going to do some cool visual things, but I mean, we have the gist of a timer done, so at least we've got that working for us. All right, so let's go ahead and write the code so that we can play the air horn noise when the timer is all finished. So rather than just doing the logging here, we're going to go ahead and play a sound. If you remember walking through this, we need to create a new media player. And let's just go ahead and call ours mPlayer. Now we're going to set this equal to a new media player, and we want to do .create, we got to pass this a couple of things. So we need to pass a context, and it'd be tempting to do this, but that's going to refer to the timer that we're currently on. So we actually need to do get application context, and then it needs to know what file it is that we're working with. So we're going to do r.raw. Remember, that's the name of our folder, and then we're going to do .airhorn, just like that. So this creates the media player, and it's amazing how simple Android has made this for us. We just do mplayer.start, and that is going to play our noise for us. So let's go ahead and give this a run here. Hit the play button. App opens up. Make sure I got a good amount of sound here so you can see what's coming through. So I'll bring this down slightly. Oh, here comes the big countdown. You ready for this air horn? Don't jump too much. There it is. Okay, so pretty cool. All right, we've got the sound functionality, but the next thing for us is that while this timer is going, so if I go ahead and bring this up, one is we want this button to then say stop and actually have it stop the timer if that's what the user is looking for. And we want to get rid of the seek bar so that, for example, if someone, while this is counting down, we don't want them to be able to move it. It's going to make all sorts of problems. So let's go ahead and talk about how we can fix that. So I think the first thing that we should fix is that if someone's going to hit the go button, then we should change the text of the button to say stop so that the user knows that they can go ahead and stop that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our code, and down here, up here, when someone has clicked this button, there's a little bit of extra code that we want to run before we go ahead and do all this countdown timer stuff. So what we're going to do first is, and there goes our horn. Wow, that freaked me. Oh, I hit it twice, so we have two horns. That's why this code we're going to write now is going to make it so we can't have two horns go off and we don't freak ourselves out in the middle of stuff here. But the first thing that we need to do is we need to make a Boolean that tells us whether or not the counter is active. So we're going to go ahead and create a new Boolean. We're going to call this counter is active. Okay. And we're just going to go ahead and set this initially equal to false. Excellent. And then what we're going to do here is when someone goes ahead and actually clicks the button, we want to do a few things. So the first one is we want to take this counter is active and set that equal to true, because we're saying, okay, someone is now starting up the timer. We also want to go ahead and make it so that the seek bar can no longer be messed with, so that the user can't update that. So we're going to say timer seek bar dot set enabled, and we're going to set this equal to false, so that can no longer be changed. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to update the button, which means then we have to have access to the button. So we're going to go ahead and create a new button, and we'll just call this the go button, and we'll go ahead and set this up inside of our onCreate method. We'll say go button is equal to find view by ID. If I remember right, we called it the go button. Yep, there we go. Awesome. Now that we have access to this go button, we can go ahead and change its text. So we'll say go button dot set text, and we can go ahead and have that say stop. Okay. And I guess we used an exclamation point on the last one. Maybe we should do it here. Both are very exciting things to make the timer go and stop. All right, so we've got all of that there. Let's go ahead and just test it out, see what it looks like. Okay, we'll wait for our emulator here. Pops up. Let me bring it down. So I hit go here, and now you can see it says stop. The seek bar here is disabled. Awesome stuff. But the issue is we can't stop anything. In fact, by just hitting that a bunch of times in 9 seconds, we're going to get a gajillion horns. I'm going to turn this down for a second because, yeah, computer's freaking out right now. So that's kind of the next big thing for us to fix here, is to make it so that we can actually stop the countdown if that's going to be happening. So the first thing that we want to do here is we want to do an if statement that says checks whether or not the counter is active. So we're going to say if counter is active, and we want to go ahead and say, if this is true, we want to do something. Forgot, let's put our parentheses around that. So if it is active, this is where we'd would want to stop it and do all that stuff. But the else side of this is all the code that we already have for this. So I'm just going to go ahead and wrap that all in curly brackets. Nice, Android Studio tabbed everything over for us. That was great. And now we need to sort of write all the things that should be happening if someone wants to stop the timer. So the first thing that we want to do if someone's trying to stop this is we should probably update our text view. So let's take our timer text view and we're going to say .set text, and let's just go ahead and get this back to the 0:30 position. Okay. Along with that, we should actually update the seek bar to get to that position. So we're going to say set progress, and we'll go ahead and update that to be 30. Excellent. Okay, so we've kind of done the seek bar and the text view. I guess we should re-enable the seek bar so that someone can actually work with that. So we're going to say our timer seek bar .set enabled, and now we want to go ahead and change that to be true. Excellent. The next thing that we do is we want to stop the counter that we have here. So in order to do that, we have to have access to this. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this, paste it up above, and now take our countdown timer and say countdown timer is equal to this. So then we can say, all right, countdown timer dot, and then we're going to do cancel. This will stop it from continuing any further. We also want to update the button, so that changes back to go. So we'll go to our, literally go to our go button, and we're going to say set text, and we're going to change that to say go exclamation point. That looks good. And with all of this there, really the last thing that we just need to do is we need to say, okay, counter is active. We want to go ahead and switch this now to actually be false so that we can sort of switch back and forth between the two of them. So hopefully we got everything there. Let's go ahead and test this out. Make sure that that's working for. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes on for stopping a timer here, but hopefully we got it all. So let's go ahead and go down to a smaller time. So here's 11 seconds. Everything was disabled, and I can go ahead and say stop. And just like that, this is now re-enabled. The go button's there again, and I can actually, go ahead and start this thing one more time. Let's make sure that the horn is still going off. I didn't hear it earlier. I know I had the volume down, but we successfully stopped it. There we go. We got the proper sound. So really the last thing that we just got to fix is when the timer runs out, it's a little bit awkward now for the user to say, oh, okay, now how do I start a new timer? It's like stop this one, and then I'm back at 30. And it'd be nice if we just sort of automatically reset it for the user once the timer counted down. So essentially what we want to do is we want to run all this code whenever the timer runs out. So what we can do is just make yet again another method here. So public void, and we'll just call this reset timer. Okay. And this method, we'll just go ahead and copy all of this, or cut rather, and then we'll just go ahead and simply call reset timer is the one that we want. And we can call this same reset timer for whenever our timer actually finishes. So, we go ahead and we play the sound, and then we also reset the timer. So let's run this, make sure it's exactly what we were hoping for. And here it comes. Let's go down to a smaller time so we can see that. Okay, here comes the egg. Dun da da da. 3, 2, 1. Look at that. Resets the timer for us. We're back. The user can move this around if they want to. Excellent stuff. So congrats on creating this egg timer app. We kind of pulled in even more concepts that we've previously learned, bunched them all together. We're just going to keep doing that in this course. So we're not completely done with timers yet. You'll see it come along here in just a second, but still got more info for you. So let's keep moving forward.